Hi, it's Jordan Teen 1, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this really sweet Minnie Mouse coffee cup cozy. So I have two different versions here. It's basically the same, only the buttons and the colors are different. So the one I'm going to do in the tutorial today is the red one, but you can also make it pink or any color you like. So the size that I've made here, I show it on a 20-ounce cup and a 24-ounce cup. They're the same exact pattern. So I think that it should generally fit most standard size cups, but you can easily adjust the size if you need it a little larger or smaller. So what you would do is just make a chain, and my chain happens to be 35, and measure it around the base of your coffee cup. And if it fits, then that's a good size for you. And as I said, if you need to add or subtract a couple of chains, you can certainly do that. I've also done a Mickey Mouse cup cozy, so I can show you what that looks like. So here they are side by side. If I can get it to stay straight. So I think they also make a really sweet pair together. To make your mini cup cozy, you're going to need a hook of some sort. So I have the Rainbow Loom metal hook, but you can use a crochet hook or whatever you have on hand. And then I am going to be using a twist tie to help me get my magic ring started. So that's optional, but I do find it very helpful. And then you're going to need a few clips or stitch markers. And then you're going to need some kind of beads or buttons, or you could just use rubber bands to make the polka dots for Minnie's dress. And I have these pearl beads. They're about 10 millimeters in length, and I only show 3 here, but I'm actually going to be using a total of 9. And then as far as my band counts go, I tried to get an accurate count, so this should be pretty close. I used 322 black, 22 yellow, 445 red, and 72 white. I'm going to begin by making a chain of 15, so for that I have 15 black bands. So you're going to take your first band, I'm going to double this, so I'm just placing it on my hook, twisting, and looping it back on, so you have your 2 loops. And then you're just going to take one at a time, pull through, and get the other end back on. So if you pull down on your chain that you're forming, it really helps your hook from getting hung up on the bands. So I'm sure that most of you already know how to do this. It's really quite simple. This is actually just the first 15 out of a total of 35. But after we do this, we're going to stop because I'm going to form the foot as I'm forming the chain. So that way we can tie in any ends and you don't have loose bands to worry about. Next, I'm going to form the first shoe. So for that, I have 11 yellow bands. And if you're making a mini with a pink dress, you probably want to use pink for the shoes. But since I'm doing red, I'm going to stay true to what she usually wears, and that's the yellow shoes. So we're going to be doing an increase in the first 3 chains from our hook, and then we're going to do 1 single crochet in the next 5 stitches coming back. So what I'm going to do is take a clip and I'm going to put it on the 2 bands that are on my hook. And now the way we've been pulling the chains through, one coming up through the other, that's considered the top and the bottom. What we're going to do is go through the side. So if you have the top and bottom facing up and down, you want to come in through the side from front to back and go under both loops. That's where we're going to do our first single crochet. So it comes through, back on, and then 1 through the other. and then we're doing an increase, so it's back through the same chain, and we're going to pull through back on. You're going to have 3 loops this time, and 1 through the other 2. So moving over to your next chain, you have your first single crochet back through the same chain for your second, and then over to the third chain. Again, you have 1 and back through for your second. So now what you're going to do is flip this over, and the side we had been going through is now facing the back, so now we're going to have to put our hook from back to front. So in the end chain here, or I'm going to start to call them a stitch, I only call it a chain when it goes through the main chain part, otherwise I'm going to call it a stitch. So from back to front, I'm going to push through these 2 loops and pull through my first band. So over to the second stitch, and we're doing a total of 5 here. So that was 3, 4, and here's our last one. And now what I'm going to do is get the chain back on my hook here. So I have my 1 yellow, and then I'm going to go back up through both of the black. Next we're going to chain 8, so I have my 8 black bands. And so our first chain is going to pull through all 3 bands here, or all 3 loops. Get the other end back on, and then you can take the clip off. And then we're just going to continue with the rest of our chain. And again, this is just a section of the chain, because when we're done looping these, then we're going to do the second shoe. And it's going to be formed the exact same way, so it's just repeating. So let me just get this clip back on. I have my next 11 bands, and as I said, it's the same way we already did the other foot. So once again, we want to be going in through the side, not the top and bottom. So what you want to do is have your foot facing up. That's important. You want to use your fingers and just slide down the chain. Make sure it's totally straight. And then from the front, you're pushing through. We're doing that increase in the first 3 chains. So that's 2 for each. With Mickey, I actually had the chain that I was going through yellow, but with Minnie I decided to have hers be a little bit lower, since that's the way that her shoes usually look. You can see a little bit more of the top of her foot. So again, I'm going to flip this over, so now I need to be going in through from the back side. So in each stitch, it's getting just 1. And that's for a total of 5 altogether. So this is my last one, and then once again I need to get the chain back on my hook. So I'm just going to push up through both loops. I have 12 black bands that are going to complete my chain of 35. So now it's just a matter of pulling the first band through all 3 loops, and then we can remove the clip, and I'm just going to continue chaining the rest. So I'm actually going to stop at the very last one, because when I get there, what I want is to connect the beginning to the end to make our circle. So I'm actually only going to chain 11 here. And then I'm going to make sure that this is completely straight here. It's kind of easy to tell for the feet, but with the rest of it, it can easily get twisted. Just going to make this nice and straight. It's kind of jumbly here at the end. And then I'm going to take this band, the one that's closest to the end of my hook, and I'm going to remove that and leave that pinched in my fingers. I'm going to slide the other end of the chain on and then put this other side back on. So I'm just really sandwiching that in the middle, and then I can take my very last chain band, get it back on, and then one through the other. And then I'm going to add my clip. In rows 2 and 3, we're going to do 1 single crochet into each one of our stitches, and we have both black rows. So I'm going to do the first row with you, and then I'm going to let you pause the video and do the second row on your own. So you should have 1 band on your hook, and you want to make sure that your feet are now pointing down. And at the very end here, we did already go through this band. This was our first doubled band. We went through there to connect it, but you are going to have to go back through that one to count as your first stitch. So just make sure this is nice and straight. You can tell by the way that the feet are pointing, and just smooth that out. And you're going to go through the first chain here, front to back. It's a little bit hard to get through. It's a tight space. And you're just doing a single crochet, and then just keep going around with 1 in each. So I can't stress enough how important it is to make sure that your chain doesn't get twisted and that you're going through the correct side. After you get past this part, it gets much easier because you don't have to worry about your chain twisting around. I know depending on what bands you're using too, some of them are better quality than others, and they tend to get a little bit more crazy and crinkly. And don't worry if it looks kind of messy right now, because until you get a couple rows on, it does not hold its shape exactly well. But by the time you get it finished, it will. It'll lay nice and flat for you. Just make sure that you're making under both loops. Sometimes it's easy to stick your hook through and only make it through one. I don't know if you can hear it in the background or not, but it's actually raining pretty hard here today. It's one of those dark and gloomy days where it's supposed to rain the whole day, possibly flood. So I like to count my bands out and lay them in piles before I actually do the looping. I just find it a lot easier that way, and I don't have to keep constantly counting in my head. But you can, of course, do it any way you like. It's also easier when I have it counted out on camera. So we're getting down to the end here, and now I have 2 bands left. So I have my chain here, and then the last one is where my clip is. And then I'm going to take my clip and move that to the band that's on my hook. So again, you can smooth this out. And then you're going to do the next row on your own here. So it's just 1 single crochet into each stitch with a total of 35 stitches. So you can pause and do that now. In row 4, you're going to switch to whatever color you're making Minnie's dress, and you need a total of 37 bands. So I have them laid out. We're going to do 2 increases. So our increases are on stitch number 9 and stitch number 27. So we are going to need to start with a slip stitch, just because we're changing colors. So you're going through your stitch, taking your first band, and it's going to pull through the stitch, but it's also going to pull through the other loop on your hook. So now you're just left with 2 of whatever color you're working with, and 1 through the other. So that's number 1. We're going to do a total of 8. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And now in stitch 9 we're doing an increase. So it's 1 and then back through the same for your second. So now we have 17 single crochets in between till we do our next increase. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and then here's 17. And then in that next stitch we're doing an increase. And then that should leave you with a total of 8 stitches left. So I'm not going to bother to count those, but that should take you all the way back to your clip. So there's not a lot of increasing, just 2 spots actually, just to give a little bit of a gradual increase, since The majority of the cups tend to get just slightly larger as they go up. And if you find that your cup shape requires more of an increase or no increases at all, you can certainly adjust it accordingly. So I'm just going to take my clip. Row 5 is going to be split into 2 sections, so I'm calling this section 5A. So the total band count you'll need is 72 of whatever your dress color is, so I have my red, and then 72 additional of the white, whatever color you want for your trim. So I have what's going to make up 4 little swag sections of the bottom of Minnie's dress, so I'm going to do these with you, and then I'll let you complete the rest on your own. So up until now we have been going under both loops of a stitch, and here's where it would normally go to work your way around. What I'm going to do is just work in this outer stitch, this outer loop, and so I'm going to turn this around so that the outside is facing me, and I'm going to be going up through just this outer loop, the one closest to me, from the bottom up. I'm going to take my first band, and that's going to be a single crochet. So I have my white, it's going to pull through and one through the other. And then I'm going to go back through that same loop. We're going to do 3 in each loop, and the second is going to be a half double. The way that works is it pulls through the stitch back on your hook, so you have your 3 loops, and the second band, which is going to be my white, is going to go through all and back on my hook. So that's just lengthened it, and then back through that same loop. Remember, it's just that one outer loop, and this is going to get a double. So that's going to pull through your first red band, or whatever your dress color is, back on your hook. So you can see how I'm using my finger to keep these 2 white bands separated and close to the base there. I'm going to pull through my second color, only through the previous, back on my hook. So I still have the 4 loops, 2 of each color, and my last one is going to pull through all 4 and back on. So you can see it went from short to medium to long as far as the length goes. And then we're going to move to the next stitch over. Remember, just that outer loop, and we're going to do the reverse order. So I have my first band through, back on. Again, I'm keeping these separate. Second band to lengthen it. That's my double. And then the third is going to pull through all 4 loops and back on my hook. Through that same loop, bottom to top, and grab the wrong one here. Pull through your color, back on your hook, second color through everything, and then back through that same loop, and this is going to be a single crochet. It pulls through, back on. You're going to have 4 loops, 1 pulls through the other 3. And so you can see here that has completed 1 little swag. So now I'm going to skip the next chain. That's important, or else it's going to get really bunchy and it's not going to lay flat. Skip the next, through the next. Again, you're going bottom to top. I have my single crochet first, and I'm going back through for my half double, so that's just 1 of your color, and then your border band goes through all, back through the same one. This time we have 2 of our dress color, so there's 1, 2, and then that border color goes through everything. So if you happen to do my Christmas tree, I use the same pattern, so maybe you are familiar with it. Moving to the next stitch over, And now we're starting with the tallest part. So we have our 2, and then the border through all 4, back through the same one. We have our half double, then the border, and same one. We have our single, 1 through the other 3. So now you can see we have 2. Again, we're going to skip the next, go in through the next, come up through. So hopefully you're getting the hang of it here. Single, through the same one. You may have to sort of slide what you've done over just to make a little bit more room. Half double, again through that same one. So now I have my double, so I have my 2 colors. And then my border. Move over to the next, starting with the double. And back through for my half double. And then through one more time for the single. So I have one more set here I'll do with you. We're going to skip the next, come up through the bottom, single, then a half double, and one more time for the double. Move over to the next, come up through, starting with your double, same one, we have our half double, and then one last time we have a single. So you can adjust these later. They get a little bit misshapen, but you can get the general idea of how they're looking and how to form them. So I'm just going to go ahead and let you finish these the rest of the way around. Just remember to skip one every time you get finished a swag, and I will show you what to do when you get all the way around to the clip. Now when you've done your last swag, you should have 2 stitches left here. So you would be skipping the next stitch, and then the last one is your loose band. So what we're going to do is just take this, and I'm going to pull it through. I'm going to leave the clip on it. And then that's going to get us ready to do section 5B. You're going to need 74 bands for row 5B. We're using the dress color, and we're going to be doing 1 half double crochet into every stitch. So here's what you should have. You should have 1 band on your hook, and you should have your end swag band secure from the last part. And since we went in the outer loops for row 5A, we're going to work on just the inner loops for 5B. So you should be able to see just that 1 loop across the top. You're pushing through from front to back, just under that 1 loop, and you're doing a half double. So you should be familiar with these from doing the swag. It's where you take the first band, pull through, and get it back on your hook. So to start, you're just going to have 3 loops, and then you take your second band and pull through everything. So then you move over to your next stitch. Again, it's just the 1 loop, pull under, back on. So from now on you're going to have 4 loops, and then the second one pulls through all 4. Again, pull through, back on, and the second one pulls through the 4 loops on your hook. And I should point out that every 3rd stitch is actually going to have 2 loops, because if you remember on the last row we skipped every 3rd stitch. So I'm just going to stay consistent and only go in that inner loop, but if you wanted to, you could go under both the way you would do a regular stitch. So it's just a little bit different than the single crochet. It just gives you a little bit more height. And I did the same thing with my Mickey for his pants. I used this same stitch. So we're still dealing with 37 stitches, even though you need twice as many bands, since you're doing really 2 for each stitch. I know my bands are getting really messed up here at the bottom. I had laid the beginning pattern out, but I just didn't have enough room to lay them all out. So we're a little past halfway around here. So at some point you're going to have to start to add your dots if you're going to give Minnie the little polka dots on her dress. So I had decided that I wasn't going to add any on this lower row, but for the remainder of the dress color rows, it's really up to you as far as the placement and the spacing that you want to use. So this is our second to last one. and then you're just ignoring this white loop, and we're back to the start here, so I'm going to go under both loops. And if you look here, there is a little bit of a gap from doing a slip stitch on the previous row, so I'm just going to go under a red loop as well, just to kind of hide that gap. And then the last one is going to pull through all four. I'm just going to move my clip. In rows 7, 8, and 9, you're going to need 74 bands for each of your rows, and you're just going to do 1 half double crochet into every stitch. So on these rows you want to add your buttons, beads, or you can just do rubber bands for the polka dots, and it's up to you as far as you want the spacing to be, but obviously you would want to have them spaced out within each row and then stagger them in between the rows. So you can pause your video here, go ahead and do your half double crochets for the next 3 rows, and then I will show you what to do next. In row 9, you're going to need 37 black bands, and we are going to switch back to doing single crochet. So here's what I've made so far. You can see I've attached my buttons for my polka dots, and I have 2 bands on my hook at this point. So it's just going to be 1 single crochet in each stitch. So you're just going to go under your next stitch. We will be doing a slip stitch since we're changing color. So you're just going to pull through all 4 of your red loops, or whatever your dress color is. And let me just move my clip to the back, and then 1 through the other. And then from that point on, you're just going under both of your loops and doing that single crochet. So it's just 1 in each, like we started this. So I'm just going to work all the way around until I get back to the start here. And as always, my last band is going to be where my clip is. In row 10, you're going to need 39 black bands. We're doing our last increase on this row, so we're going to just do 2 more increases, and it's going to be in stitch 10, and then again in stitch 28. So in our previous row we did a slip stitch to start. So the first black here may look like a true stitch, but it actually is not. So you're going to ignore that, go to this next one over. Again, you're going under both loops. And I know that my bands, even though I have them laid out, are going to get messed up because this is getting so big. But I'm going to count these out with you. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then in this 10th stitch is where we're doing our first increase. So there's 1, and back through the same for the second. And now we're going to do a total of 17 stitches in between here. So again, I'm going to count these. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and let me just move these. 7, 8, 9, whoops, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. So then in the next stitch over, which is actually the 28th stitch from the beginning, we're doing our second increase, and then that should leave you with a total of 9 stitches till you get back to the start. So we won't bother to count these out, but if you've pre-counted your bands, it should just work out perfect. So then at the end of this row, our stitch count has gone up to a total of 39. So you can always double check yourself after every row if you like. But as I said, if you already have your bands counted out, then you should know that it worked out perfectly. And as a matter of fact, since we did do a slip stitch here, I do see that there's kind of more of a gap here. So I'm going to change my mind here and take this one out. So I'm going to go through the stitch, but again, like I did earlier when we did a slip stitch, I'm going to pick up a black band and then pull through that one as well. And that'll just close up that gap there. So now you can see looks pretty solid. And I'm going to just move my clip. And again, you can straighten this out. In rows 11 and 12, you're going to need 39 bands for each one of your rows, and it's just going to be that one single crochet into each stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and let you pause your video, do these last 2 rows of the main body section on your own, and then I will show you how to form the ears next. We have to do one final thing to complete the body section here, and that's just to tie off our loose band. So you just want to take one additional black band, and what you're going to do is to just go through the next stitch over, and you're going to pull your band through everything on your hook, get the other end back on, pull one through the other, and make a nice and tight slip knot. So then you can just remove your clip. Again, make sure this is nice and snug. And then all you need to do is reach on the inside and just go through several of these inside loops and just grab your band and pull it through just to hide that. The ear is going to begin with a magic ring of 5, so for that I have 6 bands. So I will be using a twist tie just to help me get the magic ring started. So it's optional, but I do find it very helpful. So if you have that, just put it right next to your hook. And you're going to take your first band and triple that. So you just twist, back on, twist, and back on. So you have 3 loops. Just going to bend this in half. And then I'm going to pull the remaining 5 through one at a time. So there's 1, and I'm always pushing through front to back through those 3 loops. 2, 3, 4, 5. So I can remove this, add my clip, And then I'm just going to take a second and spread these evenly around the circle. In row 2 you need 10 bands, and we're doing an increase in every stitch. So we're doing 2 in each stitch. Should be familiar with increases. So I am going to do this first ear with you, and I'll let you do the second one on your own. If you've ever made anything around a magic ring, this should be pretty simple. For some reason I feel like this particular pack of bands that I am working with is extra thick this time. I actually just bought these at my local Michael's. I don't know if it's just the different lot or they've changed the thickness, but definitely are a little bit different than I'm used to. I'm going to move my clip. In row 3 you'll need 15 bands, and we're doing an increase in every other stitch. So you can see I have the 1 2 1 2 pattern. So we have a single in the first, followed by an increase in the second, and then that's just going to keep repeating until the end. So I wasn't sure exactly how big I was going to make the ears, or whether I was going to just do a half circle versus a whole circle. I tried a couple of different things, and I wound up figuring that just doing circles was about the easiest. And then I think really the part that is maybe the hardest, not that it's really hard, but just to get everything lined up perfectly, is when you actually have to attach the ears. So in that last stitch we're ending on an increase. And they are going to curve inward somewhat, but I am going to sort of stretch them out a little bit. I want them to be a little more flat than curved. In the fourth and final row of the ears, you're going to need a total of 20 bands. So the pattern is going to be 2 singles and an increase, repeating. So we're doing a single, and then a second single, and then in that third stitch we're doing an increase. And then we're just repeating that 1 1 2 pattern. We have 2 more sets here, and again you're going to notice that it sort of closes in, but when you're down the row you can sort of stretch it out a little bit. Try and get it a little bit more flat. So here's our last set. And then once again you're ending on an increase. So let me just get this clip out of here. It's kind of in my way. Sometimes depending on where the clip lays, it sort of gets in your way of working. Add my clip. And again, I'm just going to sort of stretch this out, not too far, but just so it's a little bit more flat. So you can go ahead and make a second ear. I'm not going to film that, but I will add the time to go back to if you feel like you want to follow along with the steps once again. The next thing I'm going to do before putting the ears onto the main body part is I'm going to secure off my loose bands. So I have one additional band for each of the ears, and I'm just going to put my hook back through, go to the next stitch over, and I'm just going to pull this band through everything, and then one through the other, and make a nice and tight slip knot. So then I can remove the clip, and then I'm just going to go under a couple of the bands here on the back. Doesn't really matter which. And I'm just going to pull this through and hide that loop. So I'm just going to repeat that process for the opposite ear. To attach the ears, you're going to need approximately 8 rubber bands. So I have 4 for each ear, and I would recommend placing it, if you picture your ear in half, about the bottom half of the ear to attach to this upper black part. The reason is you don't want to tack it up too high, or it's not going to be stable, and it's also going to fold down. So you just want to first see about the placement, and you will be having a bow, at least I will be, in the center, so you want to make sure you leave room for that. So I like to try and line up the ears about with the feet, so that's about how I'm going to judge. And again, I'm going to take the bottom half and line it up with the black part, and then I'm just going to reach through on the right hand side here, somewhere around the middle. I'm going to push through this section, the body section and the ear, take one rubber band, pull through to the back. You can see I have that one loop, and then I'm just going to move over, push up through both sections, grab the other end of that loop, and carefully pull that through to the back, and then one through the other. So then I'm just going to move a little bit over, again push up through, pull through, move over again, push through both sections, grab the other part of that rubber band, and if you stretch this out a little bit as you're pulling through, it helps from your hook getting hung up where you don't want it to. I have my 3 loops, one through the other 2. So you can see how it's looking as you're doing it. It looks like it's a little bit high for me, so I'm going to try and tack this next one a little bit lower. And I actually just lost it off my hook. So let's see if I can pick this back up. So I'm going to go down a little ways, sort of make this come down a little farther. Again, pull through to the back, move over, push back out, grab the loop, and pull through. So it does look like I got caught up on one extra loop there. So one is going to pull through the other 2. And again, I'm just going to check on my placement. And then I have one final band here. I'm going to push through 1 or 2 loops on the back here, Take my last band, I'm going to pull through everything. And then one through the other, make a nice and tight slip knot. And then it's just a matter of hiding this loop. Looks like it wants to naturally lay to the right here, so that's the way that I'll put it under. So just go through a couple loops. And then pull this through. So now that's one of the ears that's attached. And I'm just going to go ahead and repeat the process for the second ear. Again, I'll try and keep it in line with the foot and keep it towards the bottom half here. So you can pause your video and do that now. Next we're going to do the bow, and for that I have 40 pink bands. And I kind of have it laid out in the way we're going to do it. I'm just going to do it all in one segment. So first we're going to take a band and triple it. So this is going to be the center of our bow. So just twist and put it back on until you have your 3 loops. So now we're just going to work on one half. I'm going to pull 2 bands through. So you could use a twist tie to help you get started. I'm just going to use my plain fingers. And then going back in through that tripled band, pull through a second. And so now we have one little part started, and I'm going to turn this. So it's a little bit hard because you have such a small piece you're working with, but you want what's going to be the right side to be facing you. So I need to go in through the back side. So you can see here's where my hook is through this band. I'm going to go in through this stitch that the band is coming up through. I'm going to push in from the back, going through the 2 loops, and I'm going to pull through 3 bands, one at a time. So here's one, back through from the back, same stitch. There's 2, and then once more. This is my 3rd. And then once again, I'm going to turn this or flip it. So now the wrong side is facing me, and I'm going to go in through these stitches. So now that we changed the side, we're still going in through that same side, but now it's facing us. So we're going from front to back, going through the one where my band is coming up through, pushing through both those loops, and we're going to do 3 sets of increases. So I have 2 in this first stitch. Whoops, I didn't quite make it through there. So there's 1, and then back through that same one for a second. And then moving over to the next stitch, we have 2. And now technically there's not really a 3rd stitch, but what we're going to do is go under this little V here. It's going to be really small and tight. We're sort of creating our own stitch here. And I have 2 that are going to go in there. So you can see that it's starting to fan out. And again, I'm going to flip this. So now once again, my hook needs to go in through from the back side. I have 6 bands and then 1 to tie it off. So from the back here, I'm just doing 1 in each. Again, they're all coming through from the back. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then once again you don't really have a 6th stitch, but we're going to make one. So this little area on the side here, this little V, we're going to push through, and this is going to be my 6th stitch. So now you can see we have half of our bow done. So I just need to tie this off and hide this loose loop. So I'm just going to go under a stitch on the back here, just under one band, and I'm going to pull through everything. Whoops. I'm going to make that slip knot nice and tight, and then I just need to hide this. So we'll go under a bunch of these on the back. And pull through. Maybe just a couple more. So we have it halfway done, and I'm going to repeat this same thing on the opposite side. So I'm going to go in through from the back. Actually, let me just flip it, so I'm going in through from the front, but the wrong side is facing me. And I'm going to pull 2 through here. So there's 1, back through for the second, and then I'm flipping it. So now I'm going in this stitch, the one the band's coming up through, going in from the back side, and I have 3 I'm going to do in here. So there's 1, 2, 3, flipping it again. This time I'm going to do 2 in each. So the one that's coming up through, if it looks like your band is twisted at all, you can just go around and untwist it. This time I'm going from front to back. So there's 1 and 2. In the next stitch I have 2. And then if you remember from the other side, we kind of have to create that next stitch. So I'm pushing through this little V on the side, and you will feel that it's definitely tighter. So that's 1. And 2. Flip this around again. Now the correct side is facing you. You're going in through from the back. And we have our 6 singles, and then 1 band to tie it off. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now we have to create that 6th stitch. So along the side here, this little tight. So that's number 6. And then finally flip to the back, go under a stitch on the back, or a loop I should say, pull through everything, nice and tight, slip knot, and then just hide that. So you can do some adjusting with it to get it to be nice and curved. And then the last thing we're going to do is just to put that tie in the middle, just to cover that up and make it look like a real bow. So I'm taking 2 bands at once, and I'm going to wrap this around. So I'll just grab one side and then the other. Pull the 2 bands through the other 2. The final thing that I need to do is to attach my bow. So I have my 2 bands that I have wrapped around the center here. I have those 2 loops on a clip, and I want to see where I want the placement to be. So pretty much right in the middle, in between the ears. So I'm just going to reach through from the back, push my hook through, and then I'm going to get those 2 loops to go on my hook, and then I can take my clip out. I'm just going to pull those through to the back, and then I'm going to take this additional black band, and I do need to catch another band or 2 on the back. So let me just go under the next one over here, and then I can pull through everything. And then again, as usual, do one through the other, make a nice and tight slip knot, and then just go underneath a couple of loops and hide this. And then again, if you need to do any kind of adjusting, you can do that. And then your little mini cozy is complete. I hope that everyone loves their new mini cup cozies. You can leave me comments on YouTube and Facebook. You can post pictures of your creations to my Facebook page. So please feel free to show me your minis that you've made or any other creations. I really get so excited to see what everyone's doing. You can also find me on Pinterest and Instagram. So please feel free to post your pictures and comments there too, and subscribe to all of my channels as well. Thanks for watching!